The Black Code health declaration for cross-boundary travels will no longer be needed starting tomorrow. Chief Executive John Lee won't attend the APEC meeting in San Francisco. Financial Secretary Paul Chan will stand in. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Mainland Customs authorities have announced the dropping of the Health Declaration QR code, commonly called the Black Code, for cross-boundary travelers starting tomorrow. The measure has been in place since 2020 amid the COVID pandemic. On the final day that the Black Code is still mandatory, staff at border control points are still enforcing the measure. At the Lowell border crossing, travelers waited to have their QR code scanned. But starting on Wednesday, that requirement will be dropped, according to Mainland Customs authorities. However, if travelers display symptoms such as a fever, coughing, breathing difficulties and vomiting, or have already been diagnosed with infectious diseases, they should make a declaration voluntarily. Those who are being dishonest will face legal consequences, and if they trigger any spread of infectious disease, they will face criminal responsibility. The announcement is well received by cross-border travelers. Like this mainland tourist who said it takes quite some time if there are many cross-boundary travelers waiting to have their codes scanned. Lawmakers echoed the sentiment.
At the West Kowloon, train station, there's always a bottleneck. When we try to cross the border into mainland China, and now I think the bottleneck will be gone. We all welcome this step, which will, I would say, facilitate cross-border exchanges, and in particular for the import-export sector, for people who has to cross the border frequently.
We are looking for a more advanced technology-based ways on how we can cross our border, and we are constantly asking our residents around different areas to say, what do you think, whether we should extend the time, whether we should make so-and-so ports into 24 hours.
As the Black Code comes to an end, many people rush to the China Travel Service office in Shenzhou to renew their home return permits. This woman said senior citizens like her are not good with technology and have no idea how to use a black QR code. The demand for home return permit renewal has risen drastically ever since cross-border travels resumed in February. That prompted the National Immigration Administration to allow the use of some expired home return permits until the end of the year. Financial Secretary Paul Chan will attend the APEC leaders meeting held from November 15th to 17th in San Francisco instead of Chief Executive John Lee. The Hong Kong government said that due to scheduling issues, John Lee will not be able to attend the meeting. Lee was among the Hong Kong officials facing sanctions from the U.S. following the implementation of Hong Kong national security law in 2020. The Hong Kong government said it will continue to participate in APEC matters with a view to contributing to regional economic cooperation. The city's economy grew by 4.1% in real terms in the third quarter of 2023 over a year earlier. That's up by 0.1% when compared with the second quarter. Private consumption increased by 6.5% in the third quarter, but government expenditure recorded a decline of 4.5%. Imports of goods fell by 6%, while total exports of goods recorded a drop of 8.6%. Looking ahead, the government says the continued improvement in household income and the various market-boosting initiatives, including Night Vibes Hong Kong, should provide support to private consumption. Still, the difficult external environment amid geopolitical tensions and tight financial conditions would continue to weigh on the exports of goods as well as investment and consumption sentiments. The government has announced an action plan on modern logistics development in a bid to transform the city into an international logistics hub. With 8 strategies and 24 suggestions, the scheme aims to attract high-value products and the e-commerce market to join in the development of the SAR's logistics sector. The government will initially plan for some land in Kwai Ching and the Northern Metropolis area to be developed for logistics use. This, as Secretary for Transport and Logistics Lam Sai-hung stressed the need for more land development to increase Hong Kong's competitiveness. The Israeli government said a German-Israeli woman who was snatched by Hamas from a music festival on the 7th of October is dead. Daniel Rell tells us more.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog told Germany's Bild newspaper that a 23-year-old German-Israeli woman, Shani Nicole Luke, has been confirmed murdered and dead. Herzog said what took place on October 7th on the Gaza-Israel border goes far beyond a pogrom. We saw a slaughterhouse, he added. Luke was one of scores of people taken by Hamas during a deadly assault on the Israeli military and civilian communities. Hamas has not commented on Luke's fate. The circumstances of her death were not immediately clear. The German government confirmed on Monday that a German national had died, but did not offer specifics. A family source told Reuters that a part of a body had been found which was matched to Luke's DNA.
Behave like this,
German broadcaster RTL-NTV said her family initially thought she was alive but injured when she was snatched from the music festival, but now believe she was killed on the same day and possibly shot in the head. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz commented on Luke's death during an official visit to Nigeria. Scholz said it showed the barbarism of Hamas and the need to hold the group to account. One of the women delivers a brief statement criticizing Israel's response to the hostage crisis. In Jerusalem, activists and families of the hostages have set up over 200 beds and baby cots outside the city mayor's office in a plea for their release. Hamas and other militant groups are believed to be holding some 240 captives, including men, women and children. Daniel Rell, TV News.
In South Korea, news agency Yonhap has reported that authorities in Seoul arrested a man after two police officers were stabbed outside a compound housing the president's office. It said one officer was stabbed in the stomach and the other in the left arm, and both were being treated in hospital. A man in his 70s was apprehended. The motive for the attack is unknown. The incident took place outside a complex in the capital where the Ministry of National Defense and President Office are located. The Shenzhou 16 crew landed safely back on Earth this morning after a 5-month mission in the Tiangong space station. The return capsule of the Shenzhou 16 manned spaceship carrying taikonauts Jing Haipeng, Zhu Yangzhu and Gui Haichao touched down at the Dongfeng landing site in Inner Mongolia at 8:11 a.m. Beijing time today. The return journey followed the fulfillment of a 5-month mission and completion of an in-orbit crew rotation with the newly arrived Shenzhou 17 crew. The Shenzhou 16 spaceship was launched atop a Long March 2F carrier rocket on May 30th from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. Shenzhou 16 is the second flight mission of China's manned space program this year. It is also the first crewed mission after China's space station entered the application and development stage. The 3 taikonauts have now arrived in Beijing and will enter a period of medical quarantine. Still to come on tonight's news. Canada bans the WeChat app on government-issued mobile devices. John Lee says diversity in district council election candidates reflects the new electoral system is working well. And efforts to strengthen trade ties between Indonesia and Hong Kong. Welcome back. In Beijing, the Foreign Ministry says it firmly opposes the Canadian government's decision to ban Chinese messaging app WeChat on government-issued mobile devices. Beijing says such a ban without any evidence is a typical case of overstretching the concept of national security. The remarks follow Ottawa's announcement of a ban on WeChat and Russian antivirus software, Kaspersky, saying they present an unacceptable level of risk to privacy and security. But Canada said government information had not been compromised. In response, Kaspersky said the decision was made without warning or an opportunity for it to address the concerns. Canada said the 2 applications would be removed and users will be blocked from downloading them in the future. In February, Canada also banned Chinese short video app TikTok from government devices. Chinese authorities said they had discovered hundreds of illegal foreign-related meteorological detection sites in more than 20 provinces. These sites transmit weather data in real time to overseas locations, posing risks to China's national security. The Ministry of State Security said the authorities inspected over 3,000 foreign-related meteorological sites across the country since the beginning of the year. It found that some of the sites were directly funded by foreign governments. Some facilities were set up around sensitive areas, such as military units, while others in major grain-producing areas. The ministry said the equipment is small in sizes, easy to install, and hard to detect. Locally, the nomination period for the upcoming district council elections ended yesterday with 399 nomination forms submitted. Chief Executive John Lee said the number reflects the success of the updated electoral system. He added individuals who were unable to secure enough nominations from the fight crime, fire safety, and area committees should strive to improve themselves first. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The latest district council elections are set to take place in December. Prior to the Executive Council meeting today, Chief Executive John Lee said candidates in this year's elections come from diverse backgrounds, showing that the overhauled electoral system is working well. Regarding the change to granting the fight crime, fire safety, and area committees key authority in candidate nominations, Lee stressed the three committees' decisions depend on whether candidates are sincere in their patriotism and love for Hong Kong. Currently, 171 people are competing for 88 seats for district council geographical constituencies, while 228 are vying for 176 seats for district committee constituencies. But a number of people were unable to secure enough nominations from the three committees to join the race. The CE noted standards for district councillors are high, and candidates should strive to improve themselves if they fail to qualify. The CE also urged residents to head for the polls on the 10th of December. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Last Wednesday, Chief Executive John Lee spent more than 3 hours delivering the longest policy address in the city's history. His speech outlined a long list of policy initiatives, and Lee said on TVB's Straight Talk program that he intends to implement all of them. Under the theme, A Vibrant Economy for a Caring Community, Chief Executive John Lee outlined his blueprint for the city in 171 sections. Despite the headline-making policies aimed at encouraging childbirth and easing property market cooling measures, some critics say there is a lack of focus. Lee disagrees.
The reason why people think, well, there's so many things, that is because we want to do as much as possible to satisfy people's wants and needs. The quantity does not contradict with the focus.
The CE insists all the policies will be carried out.
Well, first of all, they will all be carried out because I'm an action-oriented chief executive. I want the government to be action-oriented. So what is written in the policy address, they will be implemented. And for that purpose, I have introduced last year the idea of indicators.
But the new plans come at a time when the government is facing a budget deficit. Lee said he intends to work with the private sector when it comes to financing the projects.
Instead of just government investing, spending money on this, why can't we think of recruiting money, attracting money to join some of these projects? That is why I've said in my policy address of setting up a committee to look at different ways of financing projects.
He cited the Western Harbour crossing as an example that private investors are allowed to make a reasonable profit before handing back the facility to the government.
It becomes a win-win situation. And at the same time, we manage to control the expenditure of government. That's what I'm trying to do.
In the second report of our series on Indonesia, TVB News looked at the trading relationship between the country and Hong Kong. In the first half of 2023, Hong Kong remains Indonesia's third biggest source of foreign investment. Hoping to strengthen trade ties between the two sides, the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong led its biggest ever business delegation to Jakarta earlier this month. Jacqueline was with the group to the archipelago.
After Chief Executive John Lee's three-country ASEAN visit back in July, this delegation comprising 40 Hong Kong businessmen embarked on a 4-day tour to Jakarta with the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong. Apart from business visits, they met with the country's ministers and business leaders. Hong Kong is the third biggest source of overseas investment in Indonesia after Singapore and China. Last year, the SAR accounted for about $5.5 billion among Indonesia's foreign investments. Main areas of ventures, mining of minerals, the energy industry, and infrastructure projects.
Indonesia, they have a lot of entrepreneur spirit because they have a very young population. They have lots of great idea, but they need more funding, more professional service. This is exactly what Hong Kong can come into play in supporting Indonesian companies' development.
Indonesia has 5.3% economic growth in 2022. And in the first half of 2023, we also hit above 5%. People always think that, the gateway in Southeast Asia is countries like Singapore or Thailand, but actually Indonesia has always been there.
The Chamber delegation also attended Indonesia's largest annual international trade expo.
Indonesia would like to open more to Hong Kong in terms of trade and investment. So I think there are many more to come to Indonesia,
including the export of Indonesian-made appliances, furniture, and handicraft to the world.
The trade expo is important for us because we can promote to batik to the world, and then the cultural heritage, including people Hong Kong and China.
Here in Indonesia, it's popular among government departments and private companies to let their staff wear their national costume, batik, on Friday, regardless of their ethnicities. Apart from different designs and motifs, there are also different methods of making the clothing, including batik tulis, which I'm wearing right now. It is batik waxed by a canting tool. And batik Lucas here, which is the most expensive and the most labor-intensive ones. They're hand-painted, stroke by stroke, completely by hand. Jackie Lin, TVB News, Jakarta.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.